Okay, so Willow, I know you from, we both interned at the Provo House.
It was a good time.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit just about like what made you want to get involved interning at Encircle. How did you get there?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me your story.
Yeah, so I mean, I went to Encircle when I was maybe like 14.
Really?
Yeah. I had a wonderful trans friend in high school, and she invited me to come with her to one of the friendship circles. And so that's where I kind of got introduced to Encircle. I went a lot when I was younger, and then kind of when I got to the point where I was like, oh, I need to start looking for an internship for college, it was like I was trying to figure out like where I'd seen interns before, and I like vaguely remembered interns when I worked, or not when I worked, when I went to the Provo home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was like the first place I looked at. They had an internship application right on the website, and then they got back to me a couple months later and started working there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, what was your experience like as a youth? When you said you're 14?
Yeah.
What was Encircle like then? How is it different now?
Yeah,
What changes have you seen?
I just remember like walking into that friendship circle room and being like so kind of confused that like we were asking for everyone's pronouns, because that is something that I had never really realized was like a thing ever. Like I've never been in a space where people are like, I use these pronouns, what are your pronouns? And it's like a very like, it's just part of the interactions at Encircle. And I remember being in that friendship circle and being like, everyone's sharing their pronouns. And I was like, what are my pronouns? Like, I was like, oh shoot, I need to figure that out. So as you know, she, they, all that,
Yeah.
it's growing. But yeah, so I think it's really interesting that my first impression of Encircle was just a lot of like, oh, like pronouns are new. People are openly sharing their sexuality, talking about how hot other people are, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was just a very open environment.
I wish that I had had something like Encircle growing up.
Yeah, because you came out a lot later than I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't come out until really just like a year ago.
Yeah.
After, doing the whole mission thing.
Yeah.
I'm still at BYU, and I'd been there for a few years when I came out. So
Yeah.
very, very different.
Yeah, because I knew I was, fruity from a younger age.
Well, tell me about that. Like,
Yeah.
what was maybe your process of self-discovery, and what labels have you used over time? Or
Yeah, so, when I think probably around the age of like 9, I told my mom I didn't say a sexuality. I was just like, Mom, I am not straight. And she was very, accepting of it and super receptive to it. But she was also like, wow, you're so young. And also like, she was like, I'm a little bit worried because like, I remember this was kind of the first time I was like, oh, like, is being gay like this weird, wrong thing? Because she said that she was worried about like other people. And so like me being super young, she was like, she's like, I appreciate you and I accept you and I love you for whoever you are, but like, I don't know if other people will be. And like, that was like really weird to me, I remember at that age. And like, love my mom, but I think like that comment kind of was scary and like unnerving, because for me, like, even though I also grew up in the church, I like never really knew, like, I never really had like a direct negative like idea of people in the community,
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first like, oh, this is scary,
Have you had any experiences like that where people have not been
nice?
nice? Yeah.
The only like thing I can like really recall, because we also went to very different like high schools, and because the high school I went to was extremely accepting, like everyone there was somewhere in the community, and like I just kind of grew up with people like that. But the only thing I can think of in public is I was on a date with a girl this one time, and we were holding hands walking down downtown Provo, and within like just that little interaction of us walking down the street, we had 2 people catcall us, and we had one person say that we were gross and flipped us off. So it was like, it was a busy Saturday night, so it was like there was a lot of people around, but it was like crazy that just walking down one street holding hands, it was like that already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's either like a sexualized thing or like a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like one or the other.
Yeah, it was like such a microcosm of the experience of
Yeah.
a queer woman. Wow.
Yeah. What about you?
That sucks. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I've had lots of like maybe more subtle things, and a lot of that is that I've only been out for a year or so.
Right.
And I think just the way I am, I'm very straight passing.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the things that I heard weren't directed at me.
Oh, but you heard from other people because they thought that you were okay to like kind of say things like that too.
Exactly. Yeah. So, a lot of it were things that I heard over the pulpit or things that I heard in classes. And then I grew up in Arizona and in kind of a more hick town. Grew up in a dirt road kind of environment. So not the most accepting, not the most progressive place.
Yeah.
So there were, just constant, there was only one person who was out in my school, I think.
Wow, that must have been really hard
for them. They were bullied a lot, yeah. And just seeing that and
not wanting to be a part of that.
Exactly, yeah. Like the implicit message my whole life has been like, just stay away from those kinds of people. You do not want to be in that group. And so I think for me, it's been a process to like get involved in the community and want to be, at school I wear rainbow wristbands and I wear pride stuff, and it's like to be more of a visual member of the community and more, I guess, not like prominent or like a leader or anything, but just like it's been a big change.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think that like it's interesting to me because I don't really realize like probably how different our growing up experiences were with being queer, because like, people didn't know that you were like part of that. But I remember like in high school, I was like the token queer girl like in my girlfriend groups, and everyone was like, oh, like Willow wants to kiss all of us. Yeah, that kind of thing. So it was, so it's like I kind of had a little bit of the opposite experience. Like it was always like kind of targeted at me a little bit more, but I think like with you, it's like you kind of heard things from other people and they didn't know that it was like harmful to you.
I think it sounds like you didn't really spend too much time in the closet. Like as soon as you realized your sexuality, you were pretty open and out about it.
But I truly have never had like a coming out like post or a coming out like official thing with my parents. It's just been like, if it happens, it happens. Like if someone asks if I'm part of the community, I will. Like the way I always thought about it, it was like with my parents is I always thought I was like, I'll just bring a girl over one day and be like, this is my girlfriend, and like that was like the extent of coming out that I wanted to have with my family. And like I just never like felt the need to like make it like a bigger post, And I know you did. So I'm curious. So I'm curious about your perspective. Like, for you, like coming out for me was just this gradual like growing up process. And I think for you, because you were older, it's like I have to let people know, Yeah,
I think there was a lot of like missed time, that I had to catch up on. I think in part, so what I did is last June, it was the very last day of Pride Month, and I woke up that morning with like a thought that I've got a big family, I'm the oldest of 8 siblings. I've got who knows how many cousins. I'm not even going to try to count, but I'm the only one, as far as I know, who's queer.
It's really scary.
Yeah, and like I had told 1 or 2 people, just close friends, that I was bi. And I remember the first time I told someone, I was like, it took me like a half hour to like spit it out. I was like sobbing, like it was just like I couldn't force myself to spit out the words. But coming out to 1 or 2 people as I've gotten closer to them, or there'd been more of an emotional bond, I think helped, because when I had that day and that realization that I was the only one who was out, but just statistically, I'm not the only queer person in my family. I just had the thought that like I don't want my younger siblings to feel the way that I've felt, where it's like I have to bottle myself up. I can't be myself. I have to act a different way. I have to put on a mask my whole life. I don't want my cousins to feel that way. Like I want there to be the thing that I've been missing, which is, an example or someone who I can turn to and be like, they made it. They're okay. They're thriving. So what I did, I hadn't even told my parents, my siblings, anybody. It was only like a very few select friends that I told.
And then you dropped that on Instagram.
Yeah, and it was like the last day of Pride Month. It was like almost midnight. It was late at night. which was kind of my hope, is like people wouldn't really see it till the next morning.
You could like turn your phone off.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
not
I
think
would
about it.
sleep through it, and hopefully that eased some of the anxiety. But I just put out like a little picture that I edited to like have the bi colors.
Yes.
And I put a caption. I don't remember exactly what it says, but I think it's interesting to look back and just how my feelings about that have changed even just in the last year. Because I think in that moment, a lot of it was like, I think I said something like, I like watching rated R movies. I like speeding. And those are things that are, flaws in myself. And also, I'm a bisexual man. And I think I was viewing it through that lens for a long time, that like my process of learning to love myself was, I was going through it at the angle of like, this is something that's wrong with me.
Yeah.
This is a flaw that's in me, and I'm learning to live with it.
Yeah.
And at the time I was saying stuff like, this doesn't define me. I'm still gonna marry a girl, but I just want people to know I also like boys. But I think over time my feelings have changed. Like, no, it does define me. Like
Boys are cute.
Boys are cute. Yeah, everybody's cute. Like I can be with whoever I want to be with.
Yeah.
And like so much of our lives is just shaped by who we're attracted to, who we love, who we want to spend time with. Like it's to say that it's inconsequential or that it's like just
a little thing to toss off to the side.
Right. It's like not the same as having a preference for blondes over brunettes.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, and I was gonna say like it drives me nuts when people are like, I hate when LGBTQ people make it their entire personality. And it's like, well, it's like, this is something that is told to be like so wrong about yourself. And like, it's something that you want to feel proud of. So like, why not like embellish it and show it off, Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, like I did orchestra in high school. Nobody ever like tried to make laws saying, oh, you can't play the bass.
Yeah.
No one ever, there's no societal stigma against liking Tchaikovsky, but there was stigma of Tchaikovsky liking other dudes. So like the fact that I think we do make it a big part of our personality is because there's a lot of ground we have to cover and make up, and like we also want to be proud and want to feel safe, despite the fact that things aren't always perfect. Like
I kind of just had like a connection to Encircle kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you talking about how like telling someone that you were bi for the first time was like, it was hard to get out, and like you felt like crying, and like, you've had like a lot of shame in this experience. And you grew up in these environments that, or like you were kind of surrounded by these environments that kind of told you it was like not a great thing, and for me, like, I think the reason that like being queer has never felt like I've never felt shame in it. Like I've always just been like, what the heck? Like to everyone else, like I'm like, why are you guys being homophobic? That doesn't make any sense. Like, is just because, I did have a really supportive mother with it. I did have queer relatives. I did grow up in a high school that was like, had a very large LGBTQ population. Went to Encircle growing up, so like for me, like I haven't had a lot of like the shame and the experience, because I mean obviously there's like, for me there's different parts of being queer that are hard, but like I think that shame has never been like a big one for me because I've just had support, and like I've never felt like it was a wrong thing because the people around me never made it seem like it was. And so, for you, like the comparison, like the youth that come to Encircle are probably like, do they seem like they're ashamed of who they are? Like, no, like they love talking about being queer, and kind of like seeing that difference, Yeah.
Well, and I think anytime anyone says like, you've made being queer the whole part of your personality, it's like, no. Like all the kids that come into Encircle, it's like, they'll talk about being queer and they love embracing that, but they'll talk about anime. They'll talk about their favorite YouTuber. They'll talk about what their favorite subject in class is. Like,
so many other bizarre things before that. Yeah.
It's like, if that's all you are seeing in someone, then you're choosing to like ignore who they are. It's like you're looking at what you perceive as a flaw of theirs instead of embracing them as a whole person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to know more about like you and your journey, I guess, growing up. Like you talked about being in a school that was pretty accepting. You've had a lot of support. What was kind of your, I don't know, just take me through the whole story of like
me.
Yeah, like when you first realized and you told somebody, and then your mom kind of take it from there.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think I ever had like a clicked moment in my brain. I think just like kind of looking back, like the little things, like when I was watching TV and, you know, like my brothers would be like, oh, that actress is hot. And I'm just like, yeah, she is. But it was never like, I don't know. I've talked to other girls before about like how like their attraction to other girls, and they're like, yeah, like I acknowledge that women are attractive. But for me, it was like, no, like I want to hold their hand. Like I want to fall in love with them. Like I want to like get married to one, you know, that kind of thing. So it was never like, women are beautiful and that was it.
It wasn't just like aesthetic.
Yeah, it was just like when I would think about like a dream wedding as a little girl, you know, it was like, oh, I'd be so cute if there was another girl wearing a dress that I was getting married to. You know, I was like, I don't want like a guy in a suit, you know, but I mean, obviously I'm fine with either, but
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of always like the thought growing up, is I always was like, the idea of like being with a woman was like so appealing and like sounded so beautiful to me. Yeah, I don't know. And then like just having a crush on every single best friend growing up, and like, you know, I remember like I remember there was this one time my best friend was telling me about like this other girl that she had kissed. This was like, I was like 12, and she told me that she kissed another girl, and I was like I was like, tell me everything. Like I was so excited, but like I remember with like other friends when they would talk about boys they had kissed, I was like, okay, like I was like boring, like you know, but like I remember being so interested in the idea of like girls loving girls, you know. But yeah, I don't know if I've ever like had like prominent moments. I think it's just always been like little things, and then for me it was like, oh yeah, I like this idea of girls, and like realizing I was queer was at such a young age that like I never really had to like come out to myself. It was just like something that was always there for me. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, what are you interested in like specifically?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love that that's part of your queer story. You know?
Yeah.
Like, tell me a little bit about your life story.
My life story.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
where are you at in school? What do you...
Yeah. Yeah, so
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going into my junior year at Utah Valley University. I'm studying psychology, but I'm taking like a pre-health track. I really want to work in healthcare, and you know, I think it'd be really cool to work specifically with the LGBTQ community. Trying to figure out how I would like fit that in there with the career. But you know, that's the dream, is just providing like accessible healthcare to LGBTQ folks. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so right now you're also working at Encircle, right?
I am.
So you've gone from Encircle Youth to Encircle Intern, and now Encircle Staff.
Yes.
What's your role there? What do you do?
Yeah, so I am the assistant home director for Encircle Provo. It's a recent role, which I'm really excited about. We talked about for a while. Yeah, how I really wanted to get the position. But yeah, like my whole job is just being there for the youth, making sure that the home is, you know, everything that they want and more. And it is such a fulfilling like job to be in. I feel so happy. I like look forward to going to work, which is something that like most people can't say. You know, and the work is really impactful and wonderful, and I feel so happy that I'm doing it. Yeah, what about...
I mean,
like,
well, I was going to say, I don't want to take credit for anything, but I think I kind of pressured you into applying.
Yeah, and then I kind of plugged you in for your job a little bit.
That's true, yeah.
You should talk about your job.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, so I went from intern, same as you, over this last summer, and I am currently a senior at BYU in the advertising program, and a job opened up to help run some of Encircle's content, doing videos and stuff. So I get to help do some of these type of things. So, yeah, make the podcast, make the videos.
Yeah.
Help run our social media. So.
And like, what does that mean to you? What does this job mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool because like, this is the kind of job I wanted to do 10, 15 years into my career. You know, like.
Yeah.
When I was like thinking of my career track, I was like, oh, I want to go work in an advertising agency, build on my portfolio, make my connections, whatever, and then maybe go retire and work for a nonprofit and, you know, something that I care about, something that's valuable and not just selling burgers and whatever, you know, like.
Yeah. You skipped right to the nonprofit.
Exactly. Yeah. So part of me is like, I am so underprepared for this job. I don't know what I'm doing. And then part of me is like, I feel so lucky. Like, this is the most amazing thing. And like, I still get to hang out with the kids pretty much whenever I want.
Yeah.
You know, I still get to be involved in the house, and it's doing good work. You know, like I get to make cool videos.
Yeah.
And help out with that, but I also get to, I don't know, be an example. Like I was talking to a youth at the Provo house yesterday, and they were talking about like, I just want to work at Encircle. Like they were saying specifically they wanted your job, but they are also saying like they were jealous. Yeah, they're also saying that they're jealous of me with my job, and I think that's cool that, you know, we're part of something a little bigger.
Yeah. I think we both feel a lot of like imposter syndrome.
Oh,
like,
totally. Yeah.
Like me, I get to work here. Yeah. I'm so happy though. Like working for Encircle is the coolest thing.
Well, you deserve your job. You're good at it.
Okay, but you too.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Yeah.
That makes me think of another question. Do you ever feel imposter syndrome in the queer community as a bi person? Because I know I do.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of talked about this for a little bit, but I dated a guy for 3.5 years, and I think that like whenever I posted stuff about, you know, LGBTQ rights on my story, or like I would talk very like passionately about queer rights and that kind of thing, like I think people were always like why are you talking, you're dating a man, you know? And like
it's like, oh, you're such a good ally.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like I know that there are a lot of queer women that like feel not ashamed, but like very confused about like sometimes they're married to a man when they discover that they're bi, and like that's a side of their life because they're married that they feel like they'll never be able to explore. And so for them, like they feel like they're not part of the community because it's like if you haven't like kissed a girl, if you haven't like dated a girl, then you can't actually be bi, you know? And I'm sure it's the same for you. Like it's like if you haven't like had these experiences with the same sex, then it's like you can't be part of the community. And yeah.
It's like, why are we gatekeeping gayness? Like gatekeeping with a Y. That was so stupid.
Okay.
But like but like our experiences don't shape who we are.
Yeah.
You know? Like who we are shapes who we are.
Well, and like even from a young age, like even if you haven't, you know, like straight people, even if they haven't like kissed the opposite sex, how do they know that they want to kiss them? You know, like that kind of thing. Like, and I'm curious, like I know that you also were in like some long-term relationships with women, so like how has that been like related to your bisexuality?
That's a good question. So like for me, I grew up in an environment and a culture where it was very much bottle up all your sexuality.
Yeah.
And you know, you can have a steam valve of going on dates once you're 16 and maybe holding hands and maybe if you really can't control yourself, kissing, you know, stuff like that. And I think I was really good at bottling everything up.
Yeah.
And so for me, like not only did I not come out until I was older, but it took me a long time to realize that I was queer.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is just not really like letting myself really express my, I guess, the straight side of my sexuality either, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was just very...
Like you feel like it has to be one or the other.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then, so I went on a mission. I went to Chile. And I think...
Fancy.
Yeah. Right? I think part of my experience there was just kind of that idea of like, I was suddenly in my brain thinking, you're not allowed to look at women. You're not allowed to think about women. You're not allowed to be attracted to women. And as I was doing that, I think...
Your brain's like...
I think, my brain's like, okay, no more women. Wait a sec. Men, you know?
Wonderful.
It was the perfect time to have that realization, you know? It was the right opportunity and everything was perfect.
Surrounded by men.
Yeah.
Like, this is the dream.
Yeah, except it was more like a nightmare. Because like I had so much internalized homophobia. I was like, what is wrong with me? Why am I having these thoughts? You know, why am I having these feelings? And like obviously nothing happened on my mission. But I think it turned into a lot of self-hatred where it's like, I am evil. I am bad. I am corrupt. I am everything I'm not supposed to be right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's a lot of, from a lot of people that I know who have been on missions, there's already a lot of feelings of inadequacy, that like you're never good enough. And I think that was just added on top of what I was already feeling.
Yeah.
So I got pretty low towards the end of my mission, especially. And it was kind of funny, like looking back, like there were lots of rumors spread about me while I was on my mission.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That I was gay. And like I hadn't done anything, so I don't know where those rumors came from. But like it was kind of funny because I was like, how did they know? Like,
Well, and I'm sure also with like your internalized homophobia going on, you're like this is so stressful because that's also like a lot of shame with it. Yeah.
Oh, so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even if it weren't true, that would have destroyed me. You know? After my mission started, I dated some in high school, but it was high school, and then coming back from my mission, there's like this pressure of like, you got to get married right now. You know? And so like at first, actually when I first got back, I was like, I need to figure out this gay thing, like what is going on? And so I went to BYU in my first semester there. I was kind of just like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm not going to date anyone. I'm not going to look at anyone. I'm going to see what happens. And so, yeah, I think it was that semester where I kind of like forced myself to admit and accept that, okay, I'm not just attracted to women.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I got in a few longer relationships, not as long as 3.5 years. But, the first person I told was someone that I was dating, because I was kind of like, I was thinking I was going to marry them, like as BYU dating goes.
Right.
So I was like, this is probably something they should know about. And like I said, like it took me like, we were sitting in my car and just like, I was just like, I got to tell you something. And then I just like, I would be like, I am, well, like it's like straight up out of like one of those shows. Like I could not say it. I could not, like, because there's so much shame.
Yeah.
And there's so much.
Once you say it, it's out there.
Exactly. Like there's no taking it back. And like I finally got myself to say it. And like I'm in tears. Like, and luckily they responded fairly well to it. She responded fairly well to it. But yeah, once I said it, it was like, okay, we're not going to talk about that again.
Yeah.
Somebody knows. And then that relationship didn't work out. And then I dated somebody else. And I was like, oh, I should probably tell them too. So then I told a few people, just as I would date them or get to know them. And then, yeah, I came out, like I said, last June. And then since then, I think I've been trying to learn to love and embrace myself, and not just the parts of myself that fit the mold of what I think I'm supposed to be.
Right.
But,
not being like a stereotype.
Yeah. But to love myself as a whole, Like I think a lot of queer folk, especially here in Utah, just with cultural influences and stuff, feel this like need to, well, if you're going to be gay this way, Don't get married, don't date anyone, don't express yourself like. You
can be gay, but you can't like do gay things.
You can't be gay in your own way. It's like you have, exactly. You can't do gay things. And I think that's what I've been learning to avoid within myself.
Yeah.
And a huge part of that was just applying for that internship with Encircle.
Yeah.
And being like,
I'm sure that was like kind of getting out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah. Because at that point I was like, I don't have any queer friends. I don't have any community. I don't have any resources, but I need an internship. Why not? Yeah. And so I applied and got hired. And I think part of it is as you're telling these, 13, 14-year-old kids who are in the exact same spot I was in.
Yeah.
Like, no, you can love yourself. Like, this is okay. Like, you're great. Like, you are perfect the way you are. I think the more you say stuff like that, the more you listen to stuff like that. Yeah. And so I think this summer's been really good for me. Yeah. Just learning to embrace.
Oh, me too.
All of me. Yeah. Tell me about that for you. I don't know if that even answered your original question. I forgot what it was.
It was just asking about like your other relationships and how that kind of was. But yeah, that was like a really good answer.
I think I touched on that. Yeah.
No, but I think like with the youth at Encircle, it is like crazy how much I see myself in them, and like I'm sure you feel that way too. Totally. But it's just like hearing them talk about their like feelings about being queer and everything, you're just like, that is me like right now too, and like I think that there is, for both of us, like there is a lot of pride in like being that role model for them of being like, I know exactly what you're feeling, and it's like going to get better, I think both you and I can like say like the fact that we're even doing this, like we're proud of being queer, you know?
Definitely. It really does get better.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I think that's something that young queer kids need to see, that like, frankly, like you can make it to adulthood.
Yeah.
You know, like you can be successful. You can graduate from high school. You can get a job. You can do what you love and love who you love.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's like no requirements to be queer, you know? Like I remember giving a tour to this trans guy that came through the home, and he was like, I work a desk job, and he was like, every time I tell people I'm trans and I also work a desk job, they're like, how does that correlate? Like, they're like, you have to be like an artist, or like, you know what I mean? Like kind of like the stereotypes for like queer people, like your career has to be like one thing. And he was like, but I love my desk job.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, we can say this as we're both wearing collared shirts, right? But like, you don't have to be a stereotype. Like, you don't have to dress any certain way to be who you are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can work a desk job. You don't have to be bohemian and a model or whatever. Like, you can just be you. Yeah. You know, and I think that's...
Do you think of bi people as models?
All of them are so beautiful. Every queer person I've ever met is just like drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
Inside and outside.
It's true. Yeah, and that's one other thing with being bi, is that every time a girl, like a straight girl, finds out that I'm bi, they're like, oh, don't go crushing on me or whatever. And I'm like, you're not my type. Like, calm down. You know?
It's like, just because I could be attracted to anybody doesn't mean I'm attracted to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like, especially if you say stuff like that, then
it's like you're shutting that down.
It's like, if you're not going to embrace me as I am, why would I ever be attracted to you?
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of embracing kind of your queer identity too, is like the rules of attraction change.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I really just want to be with somebody who helps me be my best self.
Yeah.
Who like it makes, when like those boundaries of gender and societal roles break down, it makes like personalities
so much more important.
And individuals. And it's like, when like I guess the gender role of somebody isn't as important to you, it's like everything else becomes so much more important. You know? I'm sorry I cut you off. I think you were going to say something.
I mean, what you said is like perfect, and I think is something that, you know, we should talk about with bisexuality. But I think just like going off of that, I kind of wanted to talk about like how bisexuality looks different for both of us. Yeah, because
I think it does look very bit different for both of us.
The way that we've talked about it. But yeah, like bisexuality for me tends to be more feminine leaning. You know, I have soft spot for men in my life. You know, I did date a guy for 3.5 years. But typically I like find myself leaning towards women more. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that doesn't make me lesbian. That doesn't make me, you know, completely shut off from guys. But I think sometimes like people kind of feel that way. You know what I mean? Like that I can't be bi. I have to be like a lesbian because I lean towards women.
You have to choose.
Yeah, I have to choose one or the other. Yeah. Well,
and I think, you know, we discount things like what is it, like the Kinsey scale?
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's like,
where are you on the spectrum?
Yeah, like you don't have to be 50-50, or you don't have to be 90-10. Like you can be anywhere on that scale and still identify as bisexual.
And it's definitely like a moving scale. It is not straight. It is not straight. It's like constantly moving. Like,
well, and it's a spectrum.
Yeah, like my preferences do change. Like sometimes I am like, I like men more today, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, how does that like look for you? Yeah,
I think that's something for me that I've been trying to understand more and more. Like I think I'm in a weird spot with it, where it's like, I don't know, when I'm looking at like, well, what are the genders that I'm attracted to? It's like, well, what even is gender? What does that mean? You know, like I'm attracted to stronger, burlier women, and I'm attracted to softer, you know, more frilly men. Like there's
like, what does it mean?
Am I attracted to masculinity? Am I attracted to femininity?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's always just been like individuals. You know? And I know that I'm attracted to individuals of just about every gender, a variety of genders, you know. So I think when I first came out, I was like, oh, I'm bisexual. And I think that's really easy to explain to people too. Like they get it. It's like, are you gay or straight? And it's like, well, I'm both. You know, like it's easy to say that. But I think as I learn more about the queer community and understand labels more, and get to understand what gender even is,
Yeah.
then it's like, well, maybe I'm more pansexual, you know?
Yeah, and we like have kind of talked about that a little bit
Yeah.
because like for me, like I am particular with my attraction to certain genders, you know, like
Yeah.
the way that I feel about people like changes based on their gender. And I know that with you were saying like, oh no, it's all personality and then gender comes later.
Yeah.
And you know, for some people that does still make them bi. It's for some people they use pan. So it's just like sexuality is just so fluid and, you know,
It totally is.
complex. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think like, as I was saying earlier, like as I'm learning to love myself wholly, like as a whole, I think I'm learning to love other people as a whole too.
Yeah.
You know, like I can be attracted to someone like, oh, I like your nose and your chin and your eyes. And I like the fact that you are whatever your gender is. Like I
Yeah.
embrace that.
Yeah.
But I'm not like looking for someone who is a man.
Yeah.
And
Checks off the
they have
box.
to, yeah, and it's like, oh, they're a man and they have a nice nose, so like that's good enough. It's like, no, like whatever, you know.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I was also going to say, kind of going back a little bit, I have like some bi friends, like bi men in my life that I know that they feel like they can't be like included in the community because they do have a preference towards women in their bisexuality, and they're like, oh, I'm only like a little bit gay, so like I only have like a little bit of space for men in my life. It'd have to be like a good guy, you know what I mean, and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like, and I think they kind of just discount a lot of their bisexuality, you know. And I think that
Yeah.
something that like I think bisexuals need to hear is that like you having a preference for the opposite sex does not make you less gay than someone else who's like same sex leaning, you know.
Yeah.
You are so gay, like
Yeah. Well, and like the queer umbrella can always grow.
yeah.
We don't need to kick anybody out. you know?
No, yeah.
And you're not going to get kicked out if you're 90% into women and 10% into men.
Yeah.
Or 99% into women and 1% into men. And I think, you know, like there's so much like societal pressure as a bisexual man where it's like I said earlier, it's like, oh, I can just marry a woman, you know,
Yeah.
but like just because I can and might be very happy, you
Yeah.
know, I would. I'm attracted to women.
Yeah.
But like that doesn't mean I should limit myself
Yeah.
or like exclude myself from any group or community because like
Yeah, and the minute
I
that
am
you
who I
get
am, you
yeah,
know?
and the minute you get married to like a woman hypothetically, like that doesn't like make
I'm
you
still bi. Yeah.
Yeah, like you gotta leave, pack up your bags and go. You're not part of
Yeah.
the community anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think there's like that I don't know if stigma is the right word, but it's
Yeah.
like
And I think we even feel it a little bit from inside the community as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think, yeah, just from like, you're not straight enough for straight people, or wow, what am I trying to say?
you're not straight enough for straight people.
Yeah.
You're not gay enough for gay people.
Yeah,
So it's kind of
yeah.
like you're just in this weird middle ground.
You're like, you don't belong here. Yeah.
Yeah.
In either of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think very much of that is explicitly
Yeah.
said. You know, it's always just like implicitly you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, when you feel like you're neither instead
Yeah.
of.
And a lot of people
Both.
see bi as like a placeholder too. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's someone's path to either realizing that they're actually straight or realizing that they're actually like just same sex gay, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I've heard a lot of stuff like that where it's like, yeah, the assumption is you say that you're bi just long enough until you really figure it out.
Yeah.
Or like bi is what people say when they're faking it. Like when they're
Yeah.
straight and they just want to be gay. Like,
Oh,
first
yeah,
of all, who
yeah.
would even do that? Like, why would you get out of
Well, and like
faking being gay? Like,
the fact that we're having this conversation about like the struggles of being bisexual and like people think that, you know, people say that for attention, you know,
like
like
it's not a fad. Like, it's
Yeah.
not cool to be gay. Like,
no,
it's hard.
it is
a lot of the
it is
time.
cool to be gay.
Well, yeah, it is cool to be gay. It's cool to be yourself.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that. But like,
but it's not like a trend to be
exactly. It's not like, yeah, it's cool to be yourself. It's not cool to fake being
Yeah.
gay.
Well,
if
and
you're not gay, like,
I've heard people say that like they think that it's a trend now to be like part of the community. And I think it's more so just that we're entering a world that is like more accepting. So people like think about it more,
Mm-hmm.
they're able to process it more. Like, why is straight the neutral option? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if anything, like I feel like bisexuality, like liking both genders and then deciding from there is like makes more sense to me than just liking, you have to like the opposite sex and then go from there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
yeah, I agree. I think it's probably very rare that people are like, I am only attracted to feminine people assigned female at birth who are like agree with the gender that they were assigned at birth, that are cis. Like,
that is such
I don't feel like that many people, like, and as those gender boundaries break down, I think more and more people are going to be like, you know what, I am attracted to non-binary people. I am attracted to trans people. I am attracted to people of my same gender.
Yeah.
You know, like.
And I think you and I, like, working at Encircle, kind of breaking down what we know about gender, a lot of it is, like, kind of helps our sexuality, like, flourish so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for you, like, kind of wondering if you're pan, like, do you think you would have been in that place, like, when you came out?
Well, I think when I came out, I didn't even know pan was a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think a lot of that is, you know, like, well, and I think that's part of why you're seeing more and more people come out. It's not because they want to be included in some group that's being bullied.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
the education for it
exactly.
has grown.
It's like they know the words to describe how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid of being who they are anymore.
Yeah. Going off of that, it's always funny to me sometimes when I talk to like older generations about like being queer, and they're like a grandma or something is like, oh yeah, I think women are hot too, but like that doesn't mean I can date them. And I'm like, grandma,
but
like
it does though.
I'm like, grandma, what's going on up there? Like, you have some soul searching to do. You know what I mean?
That's what I think. Anytime anyone's like, oh, you can just choose not to be gay. It's like, well, if you're attracted to people of your own gender and opposite genders,
it's not really a thing that
and you're choosing to be with someone who fits the mold or whatever, then like you're not choosing your sexuality. Like you're still polysexual or bisexual or pansexual. You're just choosing to express your bisexuality that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like, and that was the pressure that I felt, is like, okay, like at first I was like, oh, I can choose not to be gay.
Yeah.
You know, like, but then as I realized, like, no, I can't. And it's like, well, I'll choose to express my bisexuality in a straight way.
Well, I'll say this though, like, even though I haven't had shame in being like bisexual, I've definitely had days where like I like have cried like over loving women. You know what I mean? Because it's like, this does make life harder. Like I haven't had shame in the experience, but like just like fear and like worry about the experience itself. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Especially like going off of like my one experience walking down the street that one time, like just knowing that like that would be the rest of my life if I wanted to be with a woman. And it's like, for me, it's like, it has nothing to do with like showcasing to other people that like, hey, look, I'm with like another girl. You know what I mean? It's just like, this is the person I chose to date because I want to be with them. And, you know, and then in return, you're getting like all this backlash from the public. Like I have cried over that because it's like, why is it so bad to be queer, you know? Like, and there's just, for me, it's a lot of frustration at the world rather than frustration at myself, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so true. Like it's not easy.
No.
You know, like knowing who you are still isn't easy.
No, yeah. And it's really scary to kind of like make those leaps too, because it's like one thing to come out as bi, but it's another thing to like have the people in your life know that like you are living that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can say you're bi, but you can't do anything about it, kind of thing. But like, and I think that rings true, like, kind of you saying like, oh, I'll just marry a woman. I think that like when I was in my relationship with the guy, like it was easy for people in my family, especially like, you know, just like more religious people in my family, just knowing that like Willow's bi, but like that doesn't have to like that, like we don't have to worry about it, you know?
Yeah, because they're
gonna they're gonna marry this person. Yeah, so like we're fine. Like we don't have to like accept them being bi because it's not something that's like reflected.
Right. It's only in word. It's
not
in deed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that also brings up a good point that like as bi people, like we can be with someone of the opposite gender, and that's so much safer than being with someone of our same gender.
Yeah.
Or being in a queer relationship, you know? And so like there's nothing wrong with like, especially if you're in like a very unsafe situation, to be in a safe relationship, you know?
Yeah.
Especially because like you can still be attracted to them. Like there's nothing, and like that's part of the bi experience, is being attracted to that which is different and that which is the same. Like you're allowed to, as a man, be with a woman and a woman be with a man.
Yeah.
And like it sucks that people want to make you be one thing or the other.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why can't I be both?
Well, and I've even heard from like within the community that like, for example, if I wanted to date a girl, like I've heard stereotypes from like all over the community that like, oh, like if you're a lesbian, like you shouldn't date a bi girl because she's wish-washy and she'll want to be with a guy eventually, or like, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like that, it's just like bi people are just never good enough.
Yeah, no one's ever happy with
Yeah.
that, right? Those stereotypes too of like bi people all being like, all they want is to, I don't know, be loose cannons and be with everybody, and they're never
They can't
faithful.
be monogamous. Yeah.
And it's like, that's, well, and I think there's pressure as a bi person to like, to go crazy and not have
both of
monogamous
those,
experiences with.
Especially because, you know, the straight perception of bi people are always like these wild cards. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I think the perception of bi men and bi women is very different.
Very different too. Bi men are typically seen as like gay guys that are like haven't accepted it yet. And I feel like bi women, it's always like they just like want to mess around with a girl, but they actually like guys. You know what I mean? Like neither of them are taken seriously, but like in their own ways. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting in that way, like that traditionally bi men are just like cast in with the gay men, you know.
Yeah.
Gross, get out of here. And then bi women are sexualized.
Yeah,
straight
exactly.
Men, you know, and I think that's a function of patriarchal, heteronormative society where it's like all women just serve to satisfy it.
Yes,
men,
yeah,
you know,
like the catcalling experience on the street. Like, I'm just trying to go on a date, you know what I mean? And like, imagine if like you're trying to go on a date with like opposite sex, and people around you are just making comments on like your date with this person that you're just like barely meeting for the first time. Like you're just like
husband and wife walking down the street, and people are like, gross, you know, like flipping you off, like
and it's
like
just like
whistling at you, like that's.
It's just weird to think about. Like, it's just these two people trying to like enjoy their night together, and like everyone's making it like this thing about them. But yeah, I totally agree with like everything has to be for straight men. I will say too, like I think for me, some like frustrations, because I was saying, I've never felt like shame in my own sexuality, but like frustrations with the world around me. I think like, I don't know, like I don't know if you heard about the like lesbian couple that got shot down in St. George, and like just like there's like so many like things that I hear like that, and it's just like it makes you want to almost engage in an opposite sex relationship because you're just like, this is so scary. Like
what do I need to do to be safe?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think even like going off of that, just like the way that bisexuality is just presented to the world is like I don't know, like for example, like two girls kissing at a party is like hot or whatever. And like I think you know, because of experiences like that lesbian couple down in St. George, it's like, okay, like why are we sexualizing something that people died over, you know?
Like no one's relationship or their identity should be seen as entertainment for someone else's pleasure. Like the, you know, like
and it's almost easy to become like desensitized to them as well, which is really sucky, you know?
Yeah, right. We hear so many horror stories of how queer people are treated.
Yeah. I remember, I can't even remember how old I was for this, but the shooting that was at the club.
Oh, the Pulse nightclub?
Yeah. I don't even remember how old I was, but I remember for me that is actually something that I think was really pivotal in my sexuality, is like I kind of understood for the first time what my mom meant when she was like, but I'm worried for you, when I told her that I wasn't straight. And just being very confused about like why she felt that way, and then seeing that like people were killed as a direct result of their sexuality, which is something that like I think you and I are like, we didn't choose this, you know? Yeah. And these are people just trying to like find happiness in their sexuality, and like their life is taken from them, you know? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I wish that, I guess as a society, we were more okay with everybody else doing their own thing. Yeah. You know, like
absolutely.
If I want to date who I want to date, let me date them. Like, who cares? How does that affect you? You know,
exactly.
Like, you know, this idea, everybody wants everybody else to be what they want. To fit the mold, to fit in this box, to do what they want. And it's like, I think respect and love go so far, and empathy, and just, I can understand that people other than myself are different from me and have different experiences and different desires and different wants and different goals in life. And like, they should be allowed and have the freedom to
do what
be who they are.
Happy. Yeah. And even like people who identify with like sexualities or genders out of like the norm of what people who aren't like super educated in the community know about, like people have such a hard time like being okay with like learning about new sexualities and genders. But like kind of going off of that, like it doesn't matter, like
It's like,
just,
I get LGBT, but why do they have to keep adding to the acronym? It's
Yeah.
because there's other stuff out there.
yeah,
You know, like,
yeah, we're like constantly growing, and like humanity's just getting smarter, and you know what I mean, and like and also like just learn, respect, listen, like it's not hard. Yeah.
Well, and especially like those people are out there no matter, you know, if we don't talk about them, they're still out there. They're not going to change. Like they will have their sexuality, their gender, their identity, no matter what. But if we can talk about it, if we can support them, if we can bring that to the light, then they'll feel okay being themselves. They'll be open about it. They'll feel safe.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we should like be moving towards, is like, how do we build a society where everyone feels okay to be themselves?
What do you see as like the perfect world for the queer community?
Oh, that's such a big question.
I know.
Well, I think it kind of ties back to what you said earlier, where for you, you didn't want to have to come out to your parents and say, I am bisexual, I am whatever. Whereas like, I just want to bring my partner over and be like, this is my partner.
Yeah.
You know,
and
like,
no one's weird about it.
And no one's weird about it. Like, I think that's what the goal should be, is like, we don't need special treatment. We just want to be safe. Like, we just want to live normal lives. Like,
it doesn't have to be like a weird side thing about us.
We don't need our own gay island. You know, like, we just want to be at Thanksgiving dinner and bring our partner and everyone be cool. And be like, welcome.
Ask them about their career, not about like what made you realize you were gay. You know, like, not that that's a bad thing, but just like not making it the entirety of the relationship, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. What about you? What do you envision as the perfect world for queer folk? And then adding on to that, how do we get there, or how do we build to that?
Ooh, good question.
I gotta one up you.
Yeah. I don't know. I think just like more, I mean, man, like trying to think of like a perfect world like is so like hard almost, you know? But yeah, just like it not being weird, a lot more open. Like I think that like for me, I was telling you that like I had a friend that had a rainbow sticker on the back of their car, and their car got keyed, so they took off their rainbow sticker. Like just like being able to be so like open with yourself and know that there's no backlash, or like, you know, queer people being allowed to exist in public places noticeably queer and not, you know, potentially get hate crimes, like that kind of thing too. Like just full expression of gender identity, of sexuality, without like it being something that brings you harm. And that's such like a bare minimum thing to ask for. And the fact that that's like my perfect world is kind of sad.
Yeah, it's
you know?
kind of disappointing.
Yeah. And how do we get there?
Yeah, I think that's a hard question. Well, and
just
like
education, I think, right?
Yeah.
But like, how do you?
Yeah.
How do you go about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could give an answer, but I'm no expert. Well, I think we're talking about like the cultural issues, but I think there's very much still attempts to, you know, legally prevent us from living our lives,
which just
participating in sports and
going
to the bathroom, you know?
It blows my mind, like, because people that aren't in the community don't understand that it's like it literally is not something that you can control whatsoever. You know, like I happen to be queer, and you know, that's just something that I have had to grow with and like learn about myself with, but like that's like that doesn't warrant, you know, not being able to like legally get married to someone, or like the fact that like legal LGBTQ marriage is so recent in like the history of America.
2016?
Yeah,
like
2014, 2016.
Not that long ago.
Something around there,
2015 maybe?
Like so recent. Like that's like I knew that I was queer before that happened. You know? So it's like, and I remember seeing that in the news and being like, yay, my future wife. But it's just crazy that like we're still so far away from those things, but I'm grateful because it feels like the world is progressively getting there.
Yeah, and like you said, I think education and empathy are all it really takes. You know, like the more people feel comfortable and safe coming out, the more queer people we're going to know.
Yeah.
You know, and like when you have 5 cousins and 10 friends and 3 neighbors that are queer, it's going to be a lot harder for you to be hateful.
Yeah.
You know, like as you know them and you embrace them for everything else that they are, it's easier to include their queer identity in that, you know.
It makes me so happy every time I go on social media and I see a coming out post. I don't know how frequently you see those, but I see them now and then, and it's just like, yes, like, just because it's just like, just knowing that there are people that I grew up with, like these are people from middle school, or like, I don't know, like just random people, and it's like, oh, like this is something that you're sharing with the world, and you know, it doesn't define you, but like I'm so grateful that like our community, people are more comfortable coming out, and that like there are so many beautiful queer people in the world, and you know, makes me so happy.
I love that. Well, and like I think for me, just with my background, like I only know less than a handful of people who are queer and out and are thriving, and it's beautiful to see those that are doing well, but it's also sad knowing like I went to a high school of, I don't know, 1,500 kids.
And you only knew one queer person.
One queer person. Even now, I only know probably like 3 or 4 that are out. It's like, there's so many more of us. Like, I know there are.
How?
And I hope they're okay. You know?
I hope you don't mind me asking, but no. How did, I don't know, stepping into Encircle and like being straight was like the minority there. Like, how was that, stepping into that environment for you? Kind of being surrounded by queer people and meeting me, queer person, and you know, all of that.
Well, I think it's been cool for me just seeing like role models like you who are like,
thank you,
doing it well and are exceeding and succeeding and thriving. And you know, I'm still at BYU, and I know a few more queer people there, but it's still very uncomfortable, if not dangerous, being queer and out at BYU. So it's nice to see people that are very comfortable and proud and excited to be themselves. You know, I know a lot of people, queer and not queer, who are scared to embrace themselves as they really are. And so I think it's beautiful when people can do that. And I love seeing 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds know who they are, know what they want to be, who they want to be, and how they want to be. And
oh my gosh.
And I love seeing parents who are so supportive of their kids' vision for themselves, who let their kids embrace themselves. And I wish it were more common, and it's heartbreaking to see, you know, there are lots of kids who don't have that. But I think that's the world that I want to build, and that's the world I want to be a part of, is helping people feel okay being themselves. What about you? I mean, I guess you've had groups like that and different experiences, but
I think for me it was more knowing people my own age that were queer, because you know, I went to a high school that like was lots of people were queer there, so I think finally just like meeting some of the people my own age and like having a lot of the same like cultural upbringings and like relating that to being queer. Like you and I have talked a lot about that, and like it's so nice to know that like there are other people with my same exact like situation. Obviously, like we grew up in different environments, but like I think that it was really nice to like meet people that are queer, that like understand like a lot of the hardships that come with like growing up in Utah and that kind of thing.
Well, and I think, you know, that's something that despite as much sympathy and empathy that straight people, cishet people will have, they're never fully going to get it. You know, like they can be accepting, they can be tolerating, they can even celebrate, but
having those communities is everything.
It's everything. And seeing people who have figured it out, you know, even if their way of figuring it out is different than mine or yours, knowing that there are options, like there's not just dead ends in our identity, you know? Like
you don't just come out and then you never meet another gay person and then you get married to the like opposite sex and that's your whole life, you know? And there are people that have that life, and that like breaks my heart, you know? Because, you know, being like so loudly and proudly queer is like amazing. It's so fun.
And I think that's why it's so important to have communities and community gathering places and community events and pride marches and pride festivals and bi celebration day. You know, it's like we need that community in order to feel like we're okay to be ourselves. You know?